Well, I think there are some important and good news in Europe in the last months. We've been seeing the Austrian election, the Dutch elections, the French election with President Macron, and now the elections in Germany with the preparation of a new coalition for Angela Merkel. I think that the rise of populism is not as strong as it used to be, because there's a growing sense that Europe is needed in the world. Europe is a pole of stability, it's a pole of democracy, which is having a special mission to implement among the difficulties of our world. Also, I have the feeling that Europe has the capacity to show in a more clear way to the people of Europe what is the response to the difficulties, whether we are talking about economical problems, social problems, cultural issues. One of the biggest questions has been the refugee crisis. This has created a lot of fears in Europe. So we've been in a process of trying to find the right response with Turkey, with some of the northern African countries like Libya, trying to find the right answers to these refugee flows, which seems to be a little more under control today. That's why I really believe that Europe is in a new trend, with more trust towards the leadership, more capacity for the leaders of Europe to find new ways of governance, and I believe that between France and Germany, new ways are going to be opened for the Eurozone governance. So I'm more optimistic today than we could be a couple of months or years ago.
Yeah, so Europe is the birthplace of democracy, and now here at Rhodes we're talking about the future of democracy. At the same time, we've seen Catalonia region declaring independence in Spain. What are some of the takeaways or views of you when it comes to this incident?
Well, I do believe that we have seen in the last years some trends for secession coming from regions of Europe. In Scotland, for example, we had known the Basque question, the Corsican issue, also a couple of years ago, and today the situation in Catalonia. I believe that the real objective for most of this movement and most of the people that are raising their hands to try to ask for recognition is not so much aimed at independence, but more capacity to decide for their own. I think one of the biggest demand of Catalonia is to have a more responsible situation concerning economics, tax issues, and if we find the right path to give them the autonomy they would like, I think they will be satisfied with it. So it has to be done in a very careful and subtle way, and maybe the answer of Madrid, the answer of the leaders of Spain has not been enough diplomatic. They have not anticipated ways and means to deliver the right answers to the people. Because we can see that there is not a huge number of the Catalan people. There's not 90% of the people. Maybe there's 90% of the voters in the referendum, but not 90% of the people. It exists a shift. It's a divided society. So the best way is to take into account their demand, to try to find the right answers, and then I believe that their feeling of belonging to Catalonia, as well as belonging to Spain and to Europe, could be satisfied in a better way than today. Today, they have a sense of frustration, which is quite strong.
That's right. So my understanding is that in Spain and Catalonia, the government should improve their micromanaging and micro-policy
I think it's a matter of governance.
A matter of governance. So now let's bring our conversation to a bigger picture, to the world. You've mentioned in your speech that the world is becoming polar, a very multipolar one. Can you elaborate on that? What will the world be like? What does it mean to globalization?
Well, for a long period of time, starting with the fall of the Wall of Berlin, we thought that the world was going to be unipolar, dominated just by one country, the US. And we are finding out today that more and more regions, countries, are able to speak by themselves and to tell what they want. And I do believe at least we could count the important capital of the world. We have Washington, we have Moscow, we have Beijing, we have Berlin, we have Paris, and we have more and more emerging countries among the BRICS countries, for example, that really want to participate to the organization of the world. So the world cannot just be dominated and monitored by one country, one culture, one civilization. We need to have the capacity to bring together all these different ways and means to see the future of the world. And I think that's a good news for everybody, because then we could expect more balanced solutions, more inclusive solutions whenever we have to deal with crisis. And one of the most important factors, at the same time recognizing the multipolarity, is to face the fact that there are more and more crises, difficulties, economic crisis, problem of climate change, problem of proliferation, North Korean issue as well as the Iranian issue. We have regional crises, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Sahel in Africa. All these crises cannot find solutions without the help of the international community. Not only regional mobilization of the countries of the region, but also mobilization of the world community. If we look at the Syrian crisis, Moscow is very strong in the region. Of course, Moscow has the capacity to help in the process of finding solutions. But you have to count also, of course, in the US, with Beijing, with the European countries that are part of the coalition, and of course, the regional leaders, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, all these neighboring countries need to be mobilized. So multipolarity means finding the way to have all these different forces working together with the right tools. And that's why I do believe that contact group can be one of the options for Syria as well as for Ukraine, for example. Mediation through the UN or through countries that are dedicated to play the role of mediators. We need to improve this capacity in settling big issues and big crises.
But do you think we have enough conversations that have included smaller countries? And
no, you're right. I think we have made many mistakes in the past. First, we have very often chosen sanction first and dialogue after. I think dialogue should come first. Dialogue is the key, and dialogue with everybody. Very often we pledge for non-inclusive dialogue. We want to dialogue with people we like. We don't want to dialogue with people we don't like. But this is not a real dialogue. You know, diplomacy is about having relation with everybody. So it should be dialogue first, an inclusive dialogue. And of course, we should understand that most of the problem of the world cannot be solved through military action. Military intervention can be needed in some very specific moments, but for a limited moment, limited time. The best way to find long-term solution is through politics. Dialogue, politics, and put the pressure with all the international community to try to solve each crisis.
But is it getting harder and harder to talk and communicate between countries, especially like countries like DPRK?
Well, it is more difficult for one very important reason: distrust. Many countries have learned from past crises. If you take the example of Kim Jong-un, the president of North Korea, of course, he has seen the destiny of Saddam Hussein. He has seen the destiny of Colonel Gaddafi. And he believed that if he has the atomic bomb, then nobody will try even to bother North Korea. So he feels that to protect his country and to protect the regime, the nuclear bomb is needed. And it is true that sometimes The world sends wrong messages. It is the case today with Donald Trump sending a wrong message to Iran. When Donald Trump says, maybe until the 15th of October, I'm not going to certify that Iran is doing everything it should to comply with the 2015 agreement, where all the 6 countries of the world agreed that Iran should go on a pacific way for nuclear, not a military way. It is a wrong signal because then we are saying to the Iranians, even if you comply, and the Atomic Energy has said that they were complying, even if you comply, we don't trust you.
We sanction you. Still, what's the point? Exactly.
So it's absurd. So we have to be coherent, we have to be collective, and we have to be inclusive.
Yeah. Final question, I think it would be, you've just raised something really interesting. It's a very interesting concept that you've raised in your speech about G3 based on the most powerful currencies in the world, euro, dollar, and soon to be an international currency, yuan. And with the changing landscape of finance and economy in this world, do you think that will be reflected eventually in political power?
I really think so, and I really think that in the coming days, on the 18th of October of this year, with the 19th CPC, the Communist Party Congress, we are going to see and measure the importance of the change for the international community. President Xi Jinping, on the 18th of October, will be the strongest leader in the world. The one will have the more vision and perspective for the years to come. He will have legitimacy, he will have power, and he will have global capacity on military, economics, influence through projects like the One Belt, One Road, to drive the world in a certain direction. So yes, we should try to include more countries that do have this capacity. And I think China is going to be one of the driving forces of the new world.
Wow, thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.